us a little bit more about sort of like the early days of Supreme Creations and sort of how you guys turned this idea into a reality.
I joined the business about 14 years ago. When my father started the business, I was actually 4 years old. So he was a management trainee with the Birla Group, which are big conglomerates in India. And he was posted to London to be the managing director of these businesses. And after some time, he thought he had the courage to create his own business. And I have lived in a very entrepreneurial setting from a very young age. And one doesn't realize the amount of advice or mentorship you get at the dinner table, in the bedroom, when you have bedtime stories, or when you go on family holidays. It all sort of permeates, and one doesn't recognize the skills and techniques that you develop, which sort of come through by osmosis. Anyway, so I had no intentions of joining the family business whatsoever. It was extremely off my career path horizon. And I studied nothing to do with what the business does currently. I studied philosophy, politics, and economics at university, at Oxford, and I thought I would set out on a career in the corporate world, in whether finance or consulting or in strategy work. But I joined the business during the 2008 financial crash, and I thought, let me be in the business for a few months, learn from my father, and see what else is out there. And it's been 14 years since, and I haven't left.
Can you speak to what it was that maybe surprised you the most once you actually joined? And did your relationship with your father change, for instance, once you did?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. My father has been extremely hardworking throughout my life, and I've always known him to go on business trips, create great business connections. He would always have dinners with his clients and suppliers, very cherished relationships he fostered. And I recognized that when I was very young. But he wasn't intimately involved in the day-to-day machinations of, picking me up from school, dropping me off, or going to a swimming lesson. He was very much present and would do bedtime stories and family dinners and family holidays and weekends. But in terms of day-to-day relationship, it really blossomed in my early to late teens, when he would be more involved in my coursework and essays and reading, and his passion for history and politics and geography and art would come through. But I didn't realize that he has a very kind of Socratic way of teaching, and he absolutely loves mentoring. He really loves teaching. So everything he has taught me has been with a lot of compassion, patience, and I've now recognized with friends in other family businesses that their parents, mainly fathers, had not given them that same patience and care. So I feel quite privileged in that the relationship has definitely strengthened. We operate as a team, and that's probably quite unique. We have a mutual respect for each other.
Remarkable then also considering, you transitioned into the role of CEO and your father still being very much present. You've also been a major disruptor in terms of how sustainably you've gone about the whole business model. Maybe a little bit more about Supreme Creation's sort of sustainability vision, because I think this is an important message to convey.
In 2004, 2003, the UK supermarkets or big grocery stores were wanting to reduce their footprint of single-use plastic bags, and came to Supreme Creations because of my father's expertise in a material called jute. He had been trading jute and cotton for a very long time in his younger years. And they said, look, can you make us a reusable shopping bag at scale? Because some of the largest supermarkets, I don't know if your listeners will know of Tesco, of the Co-op, of Sainsbury's, they wanted to be the first supermarket to be single-use plastic free or offer options. So that was the basis of the business. But when my father then took a major risk in building the factory, instead of just trading materials, and working with a variety of suppliers, he said, look, I want to take ownership of the supply chain from A to Z. We come from a very charitable background, and him and my mother are extremely charitable, sort of socially focused people. So I think those principles have permeated, into the business-led decisions, into hiring, into retaining staff. If there is a crisis in one of the workers, whether it's a tailor or a printer or a sweeper, if they have a crisis within their family and they have financial needs, he is always ready to support and help, no questions asked. But yes, the people and planet values of our business are the DNA of the business, and we've been doing it for over 20 years, and that's because of his personal passions.
What do you think were the difference between the expectations the company had from you, your family had from you, and the expectations you had from yourself coming into the family business?
I mean, I think there were no expectations from a business perspective. I don't think my clients knew any bit of my background. And frankly, at one point, I thought I was far too overqualified. You know, I had this sort of ego. I'd been to Oxford, I'd done this top class degree, and I thought, okay, I'm going to come into this business and talk strategy and implement things. Little did I know how little I knew about business and how it's a combination of so many factors. And only when you get more and more responsibilities and your neck is on the line do you realize how complex it is to be in a business. So I have had changing expectations. I continue to have many expectations of myself at different stages of my life.
My next question for you is really from the experience that you have now and where you're at, taking into account what you've declared, all the learning that you still feel is ahead of you, but looking at your industry and looking at this move towards sustainability, what kind of leadership do these kinds of businesses need now? What kind of mindsets do we need to bring to our businesses, especially maybe when they're legacy businesses and they tend to maybe be harder to change because, we sort of like, this is how we've always done it. What kind of skill set do you think we need to bring to the table in order to truly be able to navigate these sort of like choppy waters?
I think life is quite simple and we really try and overcomplicate it. And we forget that being kind and respectful in everything that we do will actually lead to success. And now that doesn't mean you stymie ambition with that, but being kind and respectful in everything that you do and transparent is quite important. So our policy, for example, when we work with a client, is to be not suppliers to them, but partners of them. And it's just that switch in mindset. And I think, well, I'm not a recent mother. My son is going to be 2, but I have felt deeply connected to being a woman in the past couple of years. I have realized how incredible we are. And frankly, it's extraordinary that we are still not at par on so many levels, and that the systems around us are really designed not to support what we need. At the same time, I also understand the urgency for businesses to thrive, for organizations to kind of propel themselves and growth. And what I'm referring to here is, childcare, maternity cover, maternity leave, packages around to support that. And I think, this is really sad that we can't support as a community. So I think when you're saying what are the basic skills, and I just think keep it simple. And it's very basic human values of love, of peace, of being respectful, of being kind, being honest, which gets you through life, surely, hopefully. Otherwise, what's the purpose?
It's remarkable how hard keeping it simple can be. So how to find the quiet space, I guess, like where you can think like that and put everything into perspective. Like any tips on that?
Yeah. I mean, I have faced huge challenges in being incredibly ambitious at my work and then wanting to be a very hands-on mum, and that juggle and the struggle and the running up and down to, change your baby's nappy or driving to pick them up from nursery in the middle of a working day, or taking a phone call at 7 a.m. because you can't make another phone call in the middle of the day because these are active challenges for me currently. And some things that I have had to do are quite simple. So I've realized that, number one, children are quite exceptional and quite amazing, and we probably don't pay enough attention to them and to the educational institutions that they go to, because I think schools are a wonderful place where they learn and they are taught really simple, basic human values like be kind to one another. And you go to the nursery and you see all these lovely sort of posters on the wall with rainbows and sunshines and smiley faces, because they're trying to teach those critical, basic, but important skills for life. So for me, going and picking up my son from the nursery and going to see that lovely space has been very centering. Second is A few of my friends, they put alarms on their telephones at certain times of the day where they have to take a moment to take stock and they just appreciate everything around them. Thank you for your health. Thank you for your family. Thank you for your friends. Thank you for this computer. Thank you for my phone. Thank you for my food. And they take that 20 seconds when their alarm goes off, they say that and they do that. And it sounds silly that you need an alarm to do it, but actually, yeah, we do need to get forced to stop. Third is, on my table at work, I have certain books that, some philosophy books or some sort of sacred texts where I just open it up. So recently I've picked up the Bhagavad Gita, which is a scripture for Hindus, I guess, but it's universally accepted. And I've never read it, and my mother keeps talking about it. So I said, okay, let me buy it. And I just open up a chapter and read, 3 or 4 lines. And half of it, sometimes I understand, sometimes I don't. But just seeing the words on the page, which are completely different to my day-to-day machinations of email, or are centering. Home-cooked lunches are something that I find quite useful, taking the time to prepare a meal. And Indra Nui, number 5, I saw this sort of advert for Indra Nui on a masterclass. And she said, people think that being busy is what makes them important. And it really isn't. And I read that Bill Gates takes time out every month to just have time to sit in his cabin, and it's time out of his minute-to-minute planned day, but he takes time out just to think about life. And if someone as busy as Indra Nui and someone as important as Bill Gates are doing these practices and they're so successful, surely we have the time to do that, to bring it back. Lastly, and something that I'm deeply passionate about, are trees and nature. And it's through some work that we've been doing in the Queen's Green Canopy, which is an initiative in the UK to celebrate the late Queen's for her Platinum Jubilee. They wanted to plant lots and lots of trees. And so we've become very close to the organisation and the foresters, and learning how important just trees are. And standing under a tree can really centre you. So that's what I'd say. Go outside and stand under a tree and just look up at the leaves, because it's beautiful and magical.